What is going on, everyone? It is College Football Talk. I am your host, Hunter DeLauder, and today is Week 8 preview, where we have another loaded slate on the board today. Going to talk about all the biggest games of the weekend, including Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Miami, Louisville, Nebraska, Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, LSU, Arkansas, plus much more. We're going to hand out some best bets at the end of the episode, so stick around. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast. Do not want to miss anything. Twice a week, all college football season long. And in the offseason, well, there is no offseason in college football. We've come to know that. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Do not want to miss anything. On Spotify as well, listen and follow there. And if you want to follow me on social media, at DeLauder Hunter on Twitter, on Instagram, Hunter.DeLauder83. So make sure you guys are doing that. We're going to get right into it because we have a loaded slate today. So I'm going to kill the music as I always do. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right. So we're going to start with the headlining game of the week. This game's going to come to us in Austin, Texas, where the number 1 Texas Longhorns take on the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia heading on the road again to take on another top 5 opponent this year. I have a fun fact here right out of the gate, too. This is crazy. All right. Georgia becomes the first team to get 2 top AP top 5 teams on the road in the same season since the 1996 Florida team. Just now, shout out a professor of mine, Mr. James Bates, who's a part of that 96 team that won the national title. So maybe you got some good luck here. Just saying. We're going to get Bates on the show. Someone knows James Bates. Wait, I guess I have a class with him. Let's get him on the show. We'll do that. Anyway, plenty to talk about in this game. Got some just fun caveats here. So Georgia's lost 7 straight road games against AP top 10 teams, for what it's worth. UGA is the first team, as I just said, since the 96 Gators to go on the road. To have 2 top 5 teams and have to play them on the road in the same season. Georgia has won 50 straight games in a row against teams not named Alabama. Last team to beat them, it wasn't Alabama, the 2020 Florida Gators. Georgia has not trailed or has not been an underdog in a game since Clemson in the 2021 matchup when Georgia won that game 10-3 outright. Georgia was a slight 2.5 point underdog in that one. They come into this one right now. The line sits at 5. In some books, some of them is 4.5, most of them 4.5, 5. So clearly, the odds makers are leaning the Longhorns. Last time these two teams met, Texas did beat Georgia 28-21 in the 2019 Sugar Bowl. That was the Sam Ehlinger "we're back" moment. They were not back after that. It was actually, in fact, Georgia was back. And so, but after all that, the biggest questions for me in this game is a couple things. We'll start Georgia's secondary again, and can they hold up? That defense, mainly the secondary, and if they can hold up. They're going up against a Texas offense that is, talked about it before, this Texas offense is elite. They can beat you in numerous different ways. If they're not running the ball well, they'll just throw for it. And if they can't really throw it well, if they don't really want to a whole lot, they'll just run it. They can do either one. They have 2, if anything, they have 2 outstanding quarterbacks in that room, with Quinn Ewers being the true leader. But then you have Arch Manning just sitting back there as well. I've already seen him play a few games this year. Georgia right now is 39th in the pass, against the pass. They're allowing just under 200 yards a game. Explosive plays will be a massive point in this game. I mean, if Georgia gave up too many explosive plays last week against Mississippi State threw for over 300 yards against this Georgia secondary. That's just not Georgia-like. It's not accustomed to what we've been seeing the last few years. Georgia allowed 17 plays of 20-plus yards or more. Texas this year has 45 plays of 20 yards or more. I mean, that's a big stat right there. I mean, if Texas is able to get deep shots down the field, I know Ewers isn't necessarily the most, deep shot thrower of a quarterback, but he can certainly take his shots. It doesn't even have to be a giant deep shot. It can be an intermediate that just breaks one. We've seen that happen too against this team. And this secondary is going to have to play well. I mean, if they between Jonel Aguero, Ellis Robinson, if he can play, if he gets more playing time, a lot of people, including myself, have been wondering, when is the 5-star going to be able to get the playing time? I know Kirby Smart mentioned how if it was more of a traditional offense last week, he probably would have seen more playing time. He came in later in the game, made a nice couple plays. Really hoping he gets to get a little bit more playing time. Because right now what we're seeing from some of these older guys, they're just not holding up. I'm talking about Dalen Everett. I'm talking about Julian Humphreys. Talking about Daniel Harris. They're just not holding up well. Something's got to change. You have a guy like Robinson on the bench. Get him on the field. What's the worst that can happen? Okay? The eye discipline has got to be a point for Georgia's secondary and these linebackers as well. Too many times last week in this season, a guy will go in motion. It'll be like eye candy, and they'll just follow it. And all of a sudden, there's a big play that happens right after on that same play because someone's not where they need to be. There's a deficiency in the defense. Someone's not accounted for, and they break loose for a big play. They need to hold up well when they're in man-to-man. Again, we've seen this against Alabama. Guys, when they were left on their own, Ryan Williams had a nice day. That's just to be nice about it. So we're going to have to, they're going to have to be better, respectfully. Texas comes in 11th in pass offense, 300 yards a game. They have 18 passing touchdowns. But there is a little point of emphasis here with Texas receiving room. Isaiah Bond, their leading receiver, is questionable coming into the game with an ankle injury. So we'll see. He re-aggravated something in the Oklahoma game. Had to leave the game early in that one. So we'll see if he's going to be able to give it a go. If not, it's one less option. But Texas has plenty of guys behind it. Ryan Wingo, Gunnar Helm, which I think is the X factor in this one. He's the second leading receiver for Texas. He has over 21 receptions, 311 yards. He's averaging almost 15 yards a catch. And he has 2 touchdowns on the year. He had a nice touchdown last weekend. But Matthew Golden's on right there behind it. DeAndre Moore Jr. So they have guys, and they're not just anybody else. I mean, these guys are just as capable, just as talented. These are the same type of recruiting, same kind of players that the Georgias, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Tennessees, everywhere in the world, they were going after. Like, these are not your average Joes. These are 4 or 5-star guys that know how to make plays. They're playmakers. They don't shy away from the spotlight. They attack it. So we'll see if the explosive plays are going to have to be something to keep an eye on. Because if Georgia can't hold up well, like they haven't shown to have, whether it be Alabama, whether it be Mississippi State, even Auburn had some opportunities where they made some plays on third down and longs. Third down and longs, it cannot be. Georgia's defense cannot give up third down and longs. The self-inflicted wounds they did last week and against Auburn and these last 3 games on defensively, they just cannot be there. This has to be a clean game across the board. And maybe you give up a shot or 2. Okay. But it cannot be for touchdowns. You have to be able to tackle well. Missed tackles have been an issue all year for this team. Got to be able to wrap up well. Eye candy. Cannot be getting caught in la-la land. And you got to hold up when your name's called. Next point is vice versa, Texas. Are they going to be tested at all defensively? Because they haven't played anybody worth a dime offensively. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be ranked the number 1 team in the country. There's an argument maybe you can make for Oregon. Texas is the most complete team across the board as of right now. Now, again, you can say, well, Davis Warren and Alex Orji aren't very good at Michigan, and you're not wrong. You could say that Oklahoma's quarterback, they're playing with a true freshman. Oklahoma, Mississippi State were playing true freshmen. Oklahoma had their top 5 receivers out. That's fine too. And the Oklahoma's offensive line is terrible. It just is. But again, you can't take anything away from it. Now, we saw similar to this last week with Ohio State. They were previously ranked last week going into the Oregon game, ranked first in scoring defense, or it was total defense, one of the two. But they were Texas giving up 6 points a game. The best offense realistically or quarterback they faced to this point is Maybe General Booty, who's at UNL Monroe. Or UTSA, maybe it's the best passing offense they've seen. So, obviously, they haven't really been challenged or tested at all. They've been flying with clear skies and sunny days all season long. They're only giving up about 38 points. They've only given up 38 points a game, only 3 touchdowns on the season. The stats don't. I mean, the stats would tell you that Texas is possibly the best defensive team in the country. First scoring defense, first in total defense, second in pass yards allowed, seventh and third down defense. That's another one. We talked about the Georgia-Alabama game going into that one. Now, Georgia has gotten better on third down offensively. They've been not in third and forevers as they were to start the year. They've been able to kind of cut that back, become a third and manageable type team. So they've moved up to 74th, but still nothing impressive, especially against a Texas defense. It's third down Ds. Now, Georgia's fourth down offense is outstanding. I think they're the best in the country at this point. In the red zone, too, is going to be somewhere to keep an eye on, because Texas is second in red zone defense. Georgia has had trouble sometimes capitalizing. They threw a bad pick last week. Can't have that in the red zone. Got to be able to score touchdowns when we get down there. 25th in red zone offense, Georgia is. Texas has only allowed 1 red zone touchdown on the year. Georgia has 18. So it's a little chess match there. I'm very interested to see. I know Georgia's going to be able to put up numbers in this game. I just have a feeling. I know they are. It's if they can start soon. Because one of my keys to this game for Georgia is got to get a lead early. Punch Texas in the mouth. If you can do that, shell shock them a little bit. Put pressure on them. Texas has not had to have any pressure on them at all this year. They've been the enforcers. They've been the ones taking it to their opponent. Well, Georgia's got to do the same now. They got to look back at what they are. They are a team that relies on physicality, punching you in the mouth, and setting a statement. Georgia hasn't been that yet this year. I want to see if they can find that on Saturday. They can get early, quiet that crowd. That crowd's going to be lively and charged up. No pun intended with the F1 race. But I want to see if they can, this offense, like I said, they're going to be able to put points in. But I don't want it to be a spot where they're down 24 to 6 at halftime, where they got to just put it into overdrive and just start guns a-blazing after. I want to see them start fast. Go up, even if it's back and forth. Go up 10-7 on them. 13-6. I don't know. Do something. But I want to see them start fast. Carson Beck needs to play turnover-free football. He had a couple turnovers last weekend. One of them wasn't his fault. It was on the first drive. It was a tip drill. But the second one was on him. I don't know where he was trying to throw that ball in the red zone, but it cost them 7 points, or at least 3. So he needs to play a clean game, because these Texas linebackers, the secondary, while it hasn't been challenged, is still pretty good with Muhammad and Makumbo back there. They've got to be able to play well. The linebackers, I mean, with Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, like, these guys are going to want to get after you. So we'll see if Beck can play a turnover-free game. Georgia defensively, outside of the secondary, holding up well. They need to stop the outside zone run a lot. You're going to see that a lot with Texas. They're going to want to run the outside zone. They're not as much of it between the tackles type team, but they will if they want to. Majority of the time, they're trying to go outside. So we'll see if they can hold up. The line of scrimmage is going to be a giant key in this game. Both sides of the football. Which offensive line is going to step up most? Texas has been an offensive line. All of their starters have all played together for the whole time. These guys are all high school recruits. Nobody's a transfer. These guys have been playing for 3 years straight now. So we'll see if Texas has the more healthy O-line. Jared Wilson's supposed to be back and ready to roll for Georgia. Tate Rowledge is a questionable. I'd be surprised if he plays. I would be more surprised if they hold him. I wouldn't be as surprised if they hold him. Because you have another bye week coming up next week and before the Florida game. So we'll see. I mean, if he's good enough, get him out there. But the right side of that line needs to play better. Xavier Truss has been very bad lately. Got to play better. If they want to have a chance, because you got to be able to not let Beck be under pressure the whole night. And we talked about with Texas being able to have to play catch up, like put pressure on them. Look at the Washington game from last year. What did Washington do? They jumped on them early and they forced Texas to play catch up. They put pressure on them and they forced them to play catch up all night until they ran out of time. They lost. And for Texas, I haven't really talked about Texas a lot because it's just Texas has been the more complete team. Talk about just a little bit of their defense, but offensively, I'm not really too worried. But the three keys for them. And they got to keep the crowd at a fast start. We talked about with Georgia getting a fast start. Texas getting a fast start and putting even more pressure on Georgia, doing kind of like what Alabama did, where they just shot out of a cannon and curb stomped them right out of the gate. Now, Alabama let them back in it. But Texas, if they can do that, it's going to be a lot different and a harder of a challenge for Georgia to have to even have a chance to come back. Because that's a much better defense to this point, what we've seen. A much, much better defense. Got to get pressure on back. I'm looking at Hill, Simmons, that D-line. See if they can attack some of those weaknesses on that Georgia D-line or that Georgia offensive line. And put pressure on a vulnerable secondary. Mentioned it before. Well, I want to see if those speedsters like Wingo and Matthew Golden can get down the field. And if Bond's playing too, will they be able to stress that defense? Or can that secondary kind of find its way a little bit, hold up? I want to see if that's a great it's a great matchup. This is one of those games you don't see often between two teams that legitimately there's not really a clear-cut advantage as far as positions go. I mean, they're pretty much all neck and neck with each other, which you don't see very often, especially recently with Georgia. This is like the first team that they've played probably since, some of the Alabama, probably like the Alabama team from 2019, Joe Burrow LSU team, like where it's the most a complete team. Even that LSU team from 2019 had its flaws. Defensively, they weren't very good. They were good, but they weren't sound. Probably that 2020 Alabama team is probably the most complete team that's stacked up guys, roster for roster. Maybe the Ohio State team from 2022. But outside of that, you don't see it very often. So this is why this matchup is so intriguing. I expect it to be a high-scoring game. But at the end of the day, there's a winner and a loser. And I think Texas is going to be able to make enough plays in this game to where they're able to get this win. I think Georgia keeps it close. I think it's back and forth all night long. It's a high-scoring affair, but I think Texas wins. I think Georgia covers, but give me the Longhorns 37-35. It's tough. I have a bunch of Georgia people out there. Not going to like that one, but maybe this gives them a little fuel to motivation. If one of them's out there somehow watching this podcast, welcome aboard, by the way. Subscribe if you haven't. But hey, go spread the news that Hunter doesn't think you're going to win. Anyway, we're moving on now. Pains me some. Pains me. But listen, I am a neutral. I'm in the gray. I'm gonna give critiques for both sides. All right, moving on to the third Saturday in October. It is the number 7 Alabama Crimson Tide and the number 11 Tennessee Volunteers. Currently, Tennessee is a 3-point underdog. Alabama is the favorite in this one. 56.5 is the over-under to this current moment. I did check all the lines before, so these are all updated lines. Quick little couple caveats. Elimination game, in my opinion, for both these teams in the SEC standings. Could say the same thing with Georgia. But this game in particular, I think it is. Both teams are coming off ugly wins. Ugly wins, but really they should have lost, both of them. Right from the get-go, though, can Tennessee snap out of this offensive funk they're in? They're just not executing well. And Maliava just seemed to regress some from what he's played to start the year. And I don't know if teams are just getting used to him or it's just SEC defenses. He hasn't been able to figure out. A couple little stats here for you. SEC games this year, Tennessee's averaging only 22 points a game. They've been shut out the last 2 weeks going into halftime, 3-0. Tennessee just talked about, just have to execute better. There was plenty of plays to be made in that Florida game last weekend where they had guys open down the field, and he just missed them. And then you can look at the fumble. You can look at the interceptions. Just miscues that have just kind of stumbled Tennessee here. And now a lot of people are questioning if, is this something that's fixable? The offensive line's a little bit of a mess now, or is this just going to be something we're going to have to live with? Maliava, he's 94 for 143, is a 65.7 completion percentage, 7 touchdowns. Last 3 games, though, he's only averaging 173 yards a game, just over a 60% completion percentage, and he only has 1 touchdown, and he has 1 pick. And that's over the last 3 games. So Dylan Sampson has carried this team. He is the X factor for me. He's second in the nation in touchdowns, 15, just under the 700 mark. Rushing the ball, he's 7th in rushing yards. Tennessee is as a whole. In Alabama, 55th against the run, giving up just over 125 a game. 63rd against the pass, though. And we'll talk about that in a second with that secondary, that just defensively. But if you're Tennessee, you got to be able to establish the run. That's what you want to do first and foremost. And if Dylan Sampson can play anything reminiscently how he has all year, they should be fine there. They didn't even run the ball very well last week against Florida. And Sampson still had over 100 yards rushing. He had 3 touchdowns on the night. So it was still a great night for him. They're going to need another night like that. It's a D-line for Alabama in that linebacker room. That's solid. It's a solid group for sure, but it can get worked on, especially outside. Now, luckily for Tennessee, well, actually not really. Tennessee's going to want to run the ball more up the middle, kind of maybe in between tackles. They're going to want to probably see if they can maybe go a little bit of option, maybe some RPO to get those ends kind of moving a little bit. We've seen the last 2 weeks against Alabama's D-line, or just Alabama defenses in general. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, running teams predominantly have been able to take advantage of that. So we're going to see if Tennessee can do that. If they can, it's going to help out Maliava a lot. I think the key for Tennessee as well, Josh Heupel, try to settle Maliava in early, get him some easy throws. Just get the rhythm rolling. So that way the confidence is there. He's not questioning himself or any way. And he kind of keeps the offense in rhythm some. So when you do take those shots, you're going to be able to hopefully connect on them. But as for Alabama, I just kind of wrote, what is Alabama? They're too dependent on Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe on the year he's been all Alabama offensively. He is carried Alabama to this point. He's 90. He has a 72% completion percentage. He's over 1,400 yards passing. I can't talk today. 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, just throwing alone. Rushing, he's second on the team in rushing. He's 77 carries, 319 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He only trails Jam Miller, who's the leading rusher, by 41 yards. So they're pretty much neck and neck. They need to run the ball better. That leads me to right into that. And I'm not talking about with Jalen Miller. I'm talking about with your 2 hosses in behind the backfield. Jam Miller has just over 360 yards with 5 touchdowns. Justice Haynes, who is a solid running back, he only has 249 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. They're 51st in rush offense. They've got to run the football more consistently. I think they got away from it way too fast last game. And again, it became too Jalen Milroe dependent. And South Carolina did a good job at limiting the big plays. They held Ryan Williams in check. Jeremy Bernard was the leading receiver. They did give up the big play at the end, but outside of that, it was a really good game plan. I mean, most teams aren't going to do what South Carolina did. South Carolina was like, we're going to take our 2 ends, and we're just going to do what a lot of you guys are afraid to do. We're going to run to the mesh point. We're going to sit there and wait for you. We're going to get wide. We're going to say, come on out. And it worked for the most part. We'll see. Tennessee's got some guys on that D-line, James Pierce and company. The loss of Keenan Peely is very big for Tennessee. He was like their quarterback, their signal caller. Who's going to step up in that department will be another good question for Tennessee. But back to Alabama, they've got to be able to run the football, like I just said. Tennessee does have a strong defense. Alabama needs to convert more on third down. Just Tennessee's defense in general is pretty good, but and Alabama's defense now, that was offensively. Offensively, I'm not really too worried about. I just think they need to run the football a little more. They're getting too dependent on Jalen Milroe, and they're becoming more of a pass-happy team instead of maybe running the football more, not getting away from it. But defensively, I don't know what to make of this team right now. Defensively, since the second half of that Georgia game, where they went into half up 30-7, they've given up 92 points, 12 touchdowns, and I'm trying to think if there was anything else. No. And they've just looked vulnerable. The secondary has to be better. Guys like Red Morgan, Malachi Moore. Let me see. I have the other name. Jalen Mbakwe, Keon Sapp. They've got to play better. They just haven't played up the par yet. Damani Jackson's another guy. They're giving up too many chunk plays. They've just looked vulnerable. They've looked out of sorts at times. And they let Lenore Sellers and company throw all over them. South Carolina can't throw the football very well. And Lenore Sellers had one of his best game of the year. At least throwing the football. I mean, that's not Alabama-esque. And we're going to see, this is a big test. Because either A, Tennessee's going to be able to find its rhythm and throw the ball against this team. Or Alabama's defense is going to be able to keep them in check, take advantage of mistakes that Amaliava may have. I just think that Tennessee's going to be able to take advantage of it. I think it's a back and forth game. Not as high scoring as Texas, Georgia. But I just think Tennessee's going to be able to make enough plays. I like Tennessee's defense more. This game being in Neyland is another factor. Kind of how Oregon had that home field crowd. This is going to be at that same point. That Neyland crowd is going to be even more amped up than it was last week when Florida came in. And that's always a charged atmosphere. This is supercharged. I think it's an additional point or two. Penalties have killed and plagued Alabama all year long. And I don't see that stop Saturday. That's why I see to win this on a game-winning field goal again. But 27-20. We're moving on, though, to as soon as what the hell just happened there? Oh, there. All right. There we go. Sorry, my thing's all jacked up here. There we go. All right. Number 8, LSU sorry about that. Number 8, LSU coming off the massive win against Ole Miss now hits the road, taking on an Arkansas team. Battle for the Golden Boot. Taking on an Arkansas team that's fresh off a bye, fresh off a huge win against Tennessee. Biggest thing is LSU going to be able to turn the page against last week and not keep riding high and just kind of working off of that one. They're going to be able to turn the page and get ready for a physical Arkansas team that's going to want to just get you stuck in the rut and take advantage of it. Or will Arkansas be able to do that and just take advantage and win the game? Or is LSU going to be able to avoid the crisis, realize that they are realistically the better team, and not let that last week's game impact this week's game? Start with Arkansas. They got to be able to slow the game down. I think it's going to be huge because offensively they don't stack up the same. Now, they were able to limit, again, a Tennessee offense that still is one of the better offenses statistically at scoring points. I still think they average 42 points a game. But Arkansas needs to limit the possessions keep that explosive offense off the field. Arkansas is top 15 in time of possession, which is really good. That means they are long time-consuming drives, which are limiting possessions for the other team. Taylor Green should be back this weekend. He is trending upwards. So that is a great sign for Arkansas because he is really their life source when it comes to offense. And they need to protect him. That's for sure. They're 86 in sacks allowed. LSU is 4th in team sacks. They got after Jackson Dart this last weekend. I think they had 6 sacks. Whit Weeks was all over the place. That's going to be another thing. Can they run the ball? Jaquin Jackson in the backfield. That backer, some sort of ground game. Because if they can't, well, we're looking pretty good right there. That's going to feed right into that time of possession. And Taylor Green, Jaquin Jackson and company, if they want to do explosive plays, put stress second. As LSU has 3 given up point. They're still getting yards. Limiting point and score, but up a little bit. LSU is ranked 100th in passing yards allowed. They're giving up just under 245 yards a game. They're 55th in scoring defense. So you're giving up points and you're giving up a lot of yards. Passing of the ball, at least. And Andrew Armstrong is that X factor I'm looking at. He doesn't have a touchdown yet this year for Arkansas. He's their leading receiver, but he's their big play guy. I want to see if he can put stress on that secondary. And can Taylor Green find him to move the chains, find those big play threats to, again, put points on the board. Defensively for Arkansas, they're going to have to slow down the pass game somehow. 30th in scoring defense, so they're just giving up just under 20 points a game. 69th against the pass, 215 yards allowed per game. They need to get pressure on Nussmeier. Nussmeier Nussmeier and company in that offensive line has played outstanding all year round. They held an Ole Miss defensive line that is top 5 in sacks to no sacks. No pressures. Nothing. Nussmeier was clean pocket all night long. They weren't really able to run the ball effectively enough. They only ran for 84 yards on the night. But pass protection-wise, they were perfect. And LSU's only given up 2 sacks all season long. I believe that came in week 1, too. So it's been a while. I mean, those tackles, I highlighted that last week with the Ole Miss LSU preview. Emory Jones and Will Campbell, those offensive tackles for LSU, taking on Jared Ivey and Princely Uman Mielen. Even Walter Nolan, you can mix him in. And Ole Miss had no answers. They couldn't get home. We'll see if Arkansas can maybe crack the code. They were able to put pressure on Tennessee. They were able to get after a little bit with A&M. We're going to see if they can. This is their biggest test yet in that department. Landon Jackson's going to be a guy that you're going to always want to circle for Arkansas. Or if you're LSU looking at this Arkansas defense, he was a game wrecker then. He hopefully can be one Saturday night. Arkansas's 38th against team sacks. So they're getting after the quarterback, but not at the highest rate. If you're LSU, shifting out to LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, can he get the ball to his weapons? I'm looking at Kyron Lacey, Aaron Anderson, Mason Taylor, those guys. Kyron Lacey had a huge game last weekend, scored the game-winning touchdown. These will be the keys. Xavier Thomas is another guy. We have to mention him. Oh, sorry. Been up I got up pretty early this morning. So there's a yawn or two. You understand why. So anyway, back to Nussmeier and company. They're 6th in passing offense. They're averaging almost 340 yards in the air a game. They need to run the ball a little bit better. You're going up against a pretty solid Arkansas run defense that's only given up just over 100 yards a game. Caden Durham has been a reliable guy now that they've turned to since John Emery went down. So can he kind of keep things balanced some for offensively for LSU? Because I think if LSU gets into this throwing contest, you're going up against a better secondary than people maybe think. So we'll see if they can run the ball some, just enough, similar to how with Arkansas. Can you just run the ball enough? Just to keep yourself balanced, keep yourself ahead in the chains. You do not want to be falling behind 3rd down and long, 2nd down and long, stuff like that. Sorry. Turnover-free football. Nussmeier's been a little bit happy with the football. Turning the ball over some. He had a couple bad picks last weekend. He's had a few bad ones this season. See if Arkansas can maybe speed up his clock some, force him to make some mistakes. And take the crowd out of it. You're going on the road in a hostile environment. Arkansas respectfully should be 6-0. should be at least 5-1. They let that Oklahoma State game now that looks worse and worse each day. But, I mean, take the crowd out of it. I mean, the Woo Pig Sueys are going to be – they're hooting and hollering. Woo Pig Suey. You're going to hear that all night long. Take it out. Quiet the crowd. That Tennessee was not able to do that, and you saw what happened. This is a big game for both these teams. Both these teams have one loss in conference play. Actually, I'm trying to think. Does LSU doesn't have a conference loss. No. So you have an LSU team that didn't have a conference loss. Their only loss came to USC. And Arkansas only has one conference loss. I mean, these two teams are right in the thick of things. So if Arkansas can get a win, boost themselves up, not only do you have the tiebreaker, but now you kind of keep yourself rolling here. I mean, you're coming off one of the biggest wins in program history. Can you make it back-to-back weekends in another top 10 matchup? So we'll see. I like Arkansas to win this game, actually. Now I'm talking about them. 24-20, I think. I think this is a different Arkansas team than what we've seen in the past. It's not a flash in the pan. I think LSU coming off that win like that, you got to go to Arkansas. That place is going to be juiced up. They're going to be Woo Pig Suey all night long. I think Taylon Green being able to play in this game is going to be a big-time thing. Him using his legs to create plays that aren't there will be huge. And I just think Arkansas is going to be able to get by with this one. The line right now is 1.5, so it's almost at a pick'em. Over under 56. So even odds makers are a little weary on this. A lot of people are probably hammering the Arkansas line. Why? Because I think LSU, this might be a trap spot for them. At least traditionally it has been. Now we'll see Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's been a coach that you know that is always going to get up and win. If they're going to win, they're going to win the game that they shouldn't win, and they'll lose the game they should win. This is a game they should win. If you're LSU and you have aspirations to get to where you want to be, you got to go on the road here and win this game. But Arkansas is no slouch, and that's why I think Arkansas is going to win this game. All right, moving on. We're going to get outside the SEC now. Oh, man, and write down I need some coffee after this. Anyway, Miami, Louisville, number 6 Miami, coming off the bye after back-to-back games where they fell behind, came back in the fourth quarter, needed the reps a little bit to help out along the way. Nonetheless, they're undefeated. Cam Ward's looked amazing. You have a Louisville team now. It's been so-so this year. A couple tough losses with SMU and Notre Dame, but here they are. They did come back and beat Virginia, which was noteworthy for sure. Miami's a 4.5-point favorite. Sorry about this, guys. 59.5. I apologize for sure. Over-under. Miami, keys to the game. Don't fall behind. Can we just stay ahead, please? Not be down. Last 2 games, they were down 24 in the fourth quarter against Virginia Tech. And again, they were down 20, down 25 at one point. It was down 20 in the fourth. So let's not do that again, respectfully. Can we just play from ahead, establish a run game, run the ball more? They haven't run the ball nearly effectively enough. They're 46th in rushing offense. Get Damian Martinez more touches, Jordan Lyles, Mark Fletcher. Get those guys going some. They've been too dependent, kind of like with Alabama. I think they've been too dependent on Cam Ward, falling behind. They don't have time to run the football. Can Cam Ward, speaking of him, can he play a turnover-free game? He had a horrendous pick last time he played against Cal, which resulted in the pick 6. Had a couple bad turnovers. Virginia Tech game also, even fumbling the football. Last 3 games, he has 4 interceptions too. So see if they can play a turnover-free game and slow down a Louisville pass offense that is 21st in passing the football, almost 300 yards a game. They have 14 passing touchdowns, and Miami's been a little susceptible, 40th against the pass. So middle of the pack, there is room to exploit if you're Louisville. But let's see if Miami can kind of play back to how they did against Florida. Now, I don't know. I mean, Florida's offense isn't exactly lighting the world on fire, but just how dominant their D-line was getting after the quarterback, getting the quarterback under pressure, getting sacks, forcing turnovers. Like, I want to see if Miami can get back to that. We haven't seen that in the last few weeks. Even against USF, it was a little weird. They did ended up, putting a stranglehold late, but even out of the gate there. So I want to see if they can kind of get back to how they did the start of the year, not so much where they've been recently. And maybe the bye week helped out, at least I think. But if you're Louisville, yeah, let's keep Cam Ward on the sidelines. Talk about with Arkansas, time of possession. Time of possession is going to be huge in this game. Whenever you're playing explosive offenses, you want to the goal is to keep them off the field the most. Look in the NFL, teams that play the Chiefs. The key really is you want to have long, sustaining drives, not turn the football over, and score touchdowns when you're in the red zone. Well, if you're Louisville, here you go. Same thing. They're 49th in time of possession, so you want to try to improve that some, but you're still top 50 in that category. Yeah, like I said with the Chiefs, if you're playing the Chiefs, it's really simple if you're playing anybody that has an explosive offense. Run the football, kill clock, first downs, execute when you're in the red zone. And what was the other thing? I don't remember. And stay disciplined. Don't hurt yourself with penalties, stupid mistakes. Strike fast and keep a foot on the gas. Virginia Tech and Cal both did the first part. They were able to get the first leg of the race done, and then they fell flat on their face and never recovered and lost the game. They took their foot off the gas. They did what Arkansas didn't do. They did what I'm trying to think. Was there any other major upset? Mainly, I must mention the Arkansas game. But Arkansas, when they had Tennessee dead, they finished them. They did not take their foot off the gas. They didn't, even Kentucky. They did come back, but they still had to make a couple stops. Do not give this team life. When you have them dead in the rights, do not let them get back up. And we're going to see now if Louisville can do it. The Louisville getting this game at home maybe is an extra boost to them because you keep the crowd into it. Tyler Shaw is going to need to play need to attack the secondary. We already talked about how the secondary is susceptible to giving up chunk yards, giving up plays through the air, or only 40th against the pass. And Shaw's played pretty well. Tyler Shaw's played pretty well. 63% completion percentage. He has 14 touchdowns on the year, just 3 picks. So he's been throwing touchdowns, keeping the ball, limiting turnovers. He's going to need to get his guys going. Ja'Cory Brooks, Chris Bell, Jamari Johnson. Those guys are going to need to step up. Mainly Ja'Cory Brooks. The other guys are good guys, but Ja'Cory Brooks is that difference maker they have. And they're going to want to try to get some turnovers. They haven't been able to do a whole lot of that this year. They're only 99th in turnovers gained. They forced more fumbles than they have actually interceptions. But luckily you're playing a quarterback that has a history of turning the football over fumble-wise. So maybe you can take advantage of that. You're going to have to sloppy this game up. Force turnovers, execute when you have the ball, score points, and don't take your foot off the gas. Unfortunately, I just think Miami's too good of a team coming off a bye after those close losses. I think they're awake now and kind of are aware that they can't just, slide by. And but I think that Chris Paul's going to have this team ready. I think Cam Ward's going to continue to keep dominating on the field. Miami 35, Louisville 24. All right, moving on to Nebraska. Heading to number 6, Indiana. Undefeated 6-0 Indiana. Indiana's already bowl eligible. IU 6.5 point favorites. 50.5 is the over-under, excuse me. Indiana keys to the game. Can Curtis Rourke keep balling? My man from the MAC, that Kurt Signetti brought in, has just done whatever he really wants to do. 73% completion percentage, 1,752 in yards. If we're not understanding that, it's 1,752 yards thrown this year. He has 14 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions came in one game against Maryland. And that was a weird, gross, ugly game. Anyway, the weather was bad. But against Big Ten opponents this year, he's 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 73% completion percentage. He's averaging almost 350 yards a game. So he's had the answers, and nobody seemed to have figured out how to slow him down. IU is 10th in the rank, is 10th ranked in passing offense. Nebraska is 32nd against the pass. So already right there, you can kind of already clearly give the advantage to Indiana. I think Indiana's going to be able to throw the ball. Saw Luke Altmaier take advantage of a secondary for Nebraska that had issues. They were able to limit Colorado, but Colorado can't run the ball worth a shit. So excuse my language right there. But so you're going to look at a much better offense anyway, at least more balance wise. And for Indiana, can they run the ball? I think is the big one because Nebraska does run the football better or play the run better than they do stopping the pass. Nebraska is 7th in rush defense, only behind Indiana, who we'll get to in a second. Nebraska only allowing 84 yards on the ground a game. They've allowed 0 rushing touchdowns. Here's a nice little caveat for you. Indiana has 23 rushing touchdowns on the year. They were ranked in the top 35 in rushing offense. Just about 200 yards a game. Their lead guy, they have a two-headed monsters in the backfield with Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton, who have been maintaining the workload for the majority of the year. And if you're Nebraska, can you run the football? Just talk about how both these teams are top 10 in rush defense. Indiana's 6th in the country. They've allowed just 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. They're giving up 83 yards a game on the ground. And Nebraska, though, has struggled running the football. They're 90th. So they've had a tough time, which this point hasn't really been a bad thing because Dylan Raiola is playing smart football. He's been able to make plays down the field. He isn't turning the football over. He's playing clean, smart football. And that's good to see because he's a freshman. But we'll see if they can establish any sort of run game against this tough and vaunted Hoosier defense. As good as Dylan Raiola has played, he's going to want to step up. You're going to have to have him step up even more than he already has. Can he take advantage? Nebraska doesn't have that number one guy, but they do have some guys that are good enough to step up if their name's called on. Going to need to this Saturday as well. Nebraska, can they protect Raiola is the final part. They've allowed 12 sacks on the year, and IU is 10th in team sacks. They have 19 on the year. If Raiola is under pressure, under duress all night, it's going to be not good for Nebraska. They're not going to be able to do anything offensively because they won't be able to throw the ball because Raiola won't have time to do anything. And if you're not being able to run the ball effectively enough, then these guys are going to be able to just tee up and pin their ears back and get after you. So it's essential, especially more for Nebraska than it is Indiana. They're going to have some sort of run game to limit that pass rush. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. Kurt Cignetti doing things different in his first year. He brought in 27 transfers, 13 of them from his former stop at James Madison, and it's worked out so far. And fortunately for Indiana, I think they get another win here. I think Indiana goes to win 26-20, and Iowa or Nebraska then would cover that line. But I just think the Hoosiers are rolling right now. Curtis Rourke is just playing really, really good football, and nobody seemed to have an answer for it. And I don't see Nebraska being that answer Saturday. So give me Indiana to win, Nebraska to cover, because Nebraska always loses close games. All right, time to get into the plane, start the engine, get the propellers rolling as we are about to take off, as we head into around the country, where on today's episode on preview, we're going to be, that's something right there. We're going to be looking at all the other big games of the weekend. They're not the headliners, but they're also some that you need to be keeping an eye on for sure. So we got number 17 Kansas State heading to West Virginia. Both teams have only one conference loss. One team is coming off a poor playing. Trying to think of the best word here I'm looking for. Just poor game in general across the board. If you're West Virginia against Iowa State, Kansas State had to come back late against Colorado, and they did so. They were in a dogfight all night long. But certainly one to look out for if West Virginia can bounce back here, or things hopefully not starting to unravel a little bit for the Mountaineers. Avery Johnson cannot turn the football over. Can see if he can take advantage of a vulnerable, for sure, secondary West Virginia has. Auburn's at Missouri. Missouri's ranked 19th in the country. So a Tiger's going to win the game. Spoiler alert, sorry. The line's down to 3.5, though. It opened at 6.5. So something to keep an eye on there for sure. East Carolina's at Army. Our Black Knights. We are a Black Knight podcast. Excuse me. Number 23 Army. Put some respect on their name. Army is, the line's down to 14. Army hasn't trailed yet this year. Give me the Black Knights. South Carolina's at Oklahoma. Honestly, just looking to see which defensive line overwhelms the other team more, because offensively, both offensive lines stink. I think South Carolina's going to be able to win this game. I think offensively, they just have a little bit more of a pulse. I think Rocket Sanders is going to be able to run the football just enough. And this defense, once again, for Oklahoma, is just going to get worn down too much. And give me South Carolina when that happens, because when you have guys like Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart on the outside, rushing you from the end, and then you have Tonka Hemingway in the front, manning the middle part of that D-line, that's too much. Too much. Notre Dame, number 12 Notre Dame, at Georgia Tech. This game's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Speaking of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Georgia Tech will be playing Georgia there next year. When Georgia was supposed to be going to Bobby Dodd, they will be playing instead a mile and a half away in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, cool little note there. Colorado's at Arizona. I like Colorado a lot in the spot, actually. Spoiler alert, it is going to be a best bet of ours this weekend. But Travis Hunter's going to be back. He left early in the game last weekend, but he should be good to roll. And I just think this Arizona team is just deflating some. And Colorado, while they did lose last week, I think they played good enough to win. They also did play good enough to lose. They played bad enough to lose that game. They ended up losing just because they couldn't get a stop at the end. But give me the Buffs at least to cover. They're not even favored in this game. Give me them to cover at least. Who we have here? Number 15 A&M at Mississippi State. The only reason why we write this one down, Mississippi State. Let's see if that pass offense can continue to go with Van Buren, and it's A&M in a look-ahead spot here. Because in the not-so-distant future, you have a team that's playing in Woo Pig Suey Land heading to College Station next weekend, where it will definitely, it's already been announced as the 7:30 game on ABC, I believe, but you have LSU A&M next weekend. Is this a look-ahead spot for Mississippi State or for A&M? Can they get past the old classic trap game? Or will Mississippi State and those cowbells shock the world? Will they rattle them at all? I know. Number 24, Michigan's at number 22, Illinois. I like Illinois a lot in this game. I think just quarterback-wise, that's all I need to really look at. This Michigan defense isn't what they have been in the past. Not really worried about that. I think Luke Altmaier and this offense for Illinois is good enough to score enough points in this game. It's going to be a lower scoring game, but that defense for Illinois is no slouch either. And with Michigan not having any sort of passing threat, give me the Illini. And how about CBS? You have Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, all on ESPN when they could have been on your network, but you let it go. You let it go. Charlotte's at number 25 Navy. This is strictly an armed forces look at. We respect Navy, but we are not a Navy podcast. We are a Black Knights podcast. Go Army, beat Navy. And then Kentucky's at Florida. Listen, here in Gainesville, the vibes are so-so. There's a lot of questioning right now going on. DJ Lagway is the full-time starter going forward here. We're going to see. You're playing a Kentucky defense that is very veteran-led group. It's a secondary it's a defense that is, I believe, top 10 in scoring defense. And they will get after you. They're going to limit you to doing whatever you want. They're going to try to out-physical you. And they've done that. They've showed that they can do that against high potent offenses. I mean, look at the Georgia game. Look at the Ole Miss game. I mean, this is a Kentucky defense that is third in total defense. They're only giving up 251 yards a game offensively to opposing offenses. Passing yards allowed. Let's look around here. Kentucky, 13th against the pass. Scoring defense, rushing defense, 10th against the run, giving up under 90 yards a game. So you can already see that Kentucky is a solid defense. They're 9th in scoring defense. We already talked about that, giving up just under 15 points a game. Florida's banged up in the running back room. They're deep, but they're still banged up. Are they going to be able to run the ball effectively enough? They got ran over like a freight train last year. Ray Davis is still running. Joe Tessitore's still calling that game, telling Ray Davis is still running. We'll see. I mean, Florida can stop the run. This revival of this defense for Florida has been fascinating to see. Can they keep it going? I think they will, because Tennessee offensively is very anemic. They really only have a couple guys that have any sort of threat. Now, they're not coming from the quarterback position, I'll tell you that. With Vandergriff, who only has 5 touchdowns on the year, Dane Key and Barry Brown on the outside are going to be the only threats. It's a so-so secondary at Florida. I think I like the linebacker room a lot more than the linebacker room and the defensive line has been a lot better as of late the last 2 weeks. With, you have Tyreek Sapp, Cam Jackson, you have George Gums Jr., Pfeiffer on the outsides as well, and Shamar James manning the middle right there. So I think this is a low-scoring game, if we're going to be honest. I like Florida to win this game. The line has shifted to Kentucky as a 2-point favorite. I like Florida to win this game outright, honestly. I think Lagway's going to be able to attack that secondary just enough, make enough plays. I think Florida's offense is better. We'll see. It's going to come down to this. Which team's going to be more physical? Can Florida run the football at all? And can Florida just score enough points against a Kentucky defense that's really good? Can Kentucky score any points against a so-so defense? We'll see. But I like Florida to win that one outright for sure. I think 20-17 is final. Lower scoring, but I would look at the under in that one for sure. Whatever it is, I don't know what the line is. But nonetheless, though, we're going to move to best bets because it's that time of the episode here as we wrap things up. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast. Like and give me a subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, hit the College Football Talk follow button there. On social media at DeLauder Hunter, Instagram Hunter.DeLauder83. Best bets, 4-1 last weekend. We are hot. I mean, we are red hot. 9-1 in our last 2 weeks. We have had 4 straight winning weekends. 17-10 on the season. We started terribly, but we have shot out like a cannon since. We're going to try to keep it rolling. Riding the Black Knights again. That line started all the way up at 17. It's dropped down to 14.5. Give me Army. 14.5. Auburn plus 6.5. That line, if you got it before it dropped, good on you. Auburn plus 6.5, because that's when I locked it in at. Florida plus 2 is where it's at right now. I would look at even putting money on an alternate spread on them covering a game. I think that they're a much better team offensively than Kentucky, and I think Kentucky is just going to run out of steam some on defense. And Kentucky and Georgia, if Florida can play good enough defensively, how they have been the last 2 weeks, they're going to be able to shut down Kentucky enough in the swamp. Give me the Gators. Colorado plus 3. I love Colorado in the spot, even on the road. Give me at least the cover. I don't know about win the game, but they're kind of like Nebraska at this point. If they're going to lose, they're going to lose close. So give me Colorado. Tennessee plus 3. I like Tennessee to win outright. I think that Neyland crowd's going to be an extra factor in this game. I don't know what to make of this Alabama defense at all, especially in the secondary. There are young guys that haven't come into form yet. And it happens sometimes. But give me Tennessee. And Illinois plus 3.5. I think the line's at plus 3 now. Or no, it is 3.5. I had it at plus 3. So big whoop, whatever you do. Better quarterback play, better team. Games in Champaign. Give me the Illini. So looking for a winning week number 5 in a row. Trying to just stay hot. Making you guys money. Not too late to hop on College Football Talk betting train if you're still around. Hopefully, we're not boosting yourselves up enough like LSU is, but we're riding high right now for sure, for sure. But that's gonna be it for today's episode. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast as we're trying to up the subscription numbers, up the views. Been a little lackluster last few weeks, our last couple episodes at least, in the viewing department. So make sure you guys are watching the videos, liking, sharing, and if you're not subscribed already, make sure you guys are subscribed. If you know anybody that's a college football fan, get them on board because we'd love to add more people to our army. And the only way to do this is for you guys to go out there and recruit. So enjoy week 8 of this college football season. We only have so many of them left. Enjoy each and every one of them. Enjoy all the action from Thursday night, tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, into next week. So enjoy that. I'll be back Monday for the recap episode. But until then, I'm Hunter. This is College Football Talk. Enjoy week 8. We'll be back next time. Peace out.